know where to begin. This week has been an agony of sadness, of pain and violence, a week of terror and chaos and hatred, and a week that has truly tried our humanity. So where do I begin? What do I say? Elie Wiesel died last Shabbat. He was a survivor of the Holocaust, but he became so much more. A fighter for peace, human rights, and human decency. His widow, Marion, said this about him. He waged countless battles for innocent victims, regardless of ethnicity or creed. How did he do this? Elie Wiesel truly was, as Benjamin Netanyahu said, he was a master of words. He used his voice to remember and to hold us all to a higher standard. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum issued a statement upon his death which said, "Through his singular moral leadership, intellect, and eloquence, he gave voice to those who had been silenced forever and devoted his life to fulfilling the promise of never again for all future victims of genocide." Menachem Rosenzweig wrote about Elie, his friend, and he said, he believed fervently, passionately, that a paramount responsibility inherent in his survival, alongside remembrance, was to speak out forcefully against indifference and against suffering, persecution, or oppression of any kind. This was a constant refrain in Elie Wiesel's life. President Bill Clinton remembered him. He said, as he often said, one person of integrity can make a difference. For so many, he was that difference. Elie Wiesel, a man of words, a man who spoke truth to power with dignity and courage, died on Saturday. This week, we read in the Torah about a man named Korach. Our parsha begins with this. Now Korach, son of Ishar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, betook himself to rise up against Moses. Together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. They combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. For all the community are holy, all of them, and the Eternal is in their midst. Why then do you, Moses, why do you raise yourselves above the Eternal's congregation?" So, in response to this, Moses arranges a contest to see who is more favored by God. Aaron, Moses' brother, and Korach each bring incense to the tent of meeting. God's voice then rings out. "Stand back from this community that I may annihilate them in an instant," God says. All of a sudden, the ground under them burst asunder, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their possessions, all of Korach's people and their households. Wow. Harsh punishment for Korach and his followers. What's going on here? Is God so concerned that someone should challenge Moses' authority that dissenters are swallowed up by the earth? The answer to this is, thankfully, a pretty resounding no. It's very clear that Moses is considered an open and humble leader. And so our sages read this very clearly as an important lesson in how to engage in dissent, how to engage in dialogue, and how to bring respectful opposition to leadership. Korach is a lesson in what not to do. I think it's a pretty powerful one. Korach walks in determined to undermine, to disgrace, to embarrass, and to displace Moses. It's not about working together or hearing the other's point of view. Korach is the antithesis of respectful dialogue. Korach dies, not because he disagrees with Moses, not because he announces this disagreement publicly, not because he wants to see a change in leadership. Korach dies because of his unwillingness to see the humanity in Moses, his unwillingness to engage in conversation, and his unwillingness to be a part of a message Wiesel said, "In an age tainted by violence, we must teach coming generations of the origins and consequences of violence. In a society of bigotry and indifference, we must tell our contemporaries that whatever the answer, it must grow out of human compassion and reflect man's relentless quest for justice and memory. And we must insist again and again that it is the Jew who carries that message of humankind to all mankind." Perhaps he could have said those words immediately following Korach's failed rebellion. If Korach is an example for us of what not to do, of how not to speak out, Elie Wiesel is for us the example of what to do, how to speak out. And that, my friends, is what we must do now. And so I come to the rest of this week. 2 men, Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, are dead, joining, as the nation called it, a long roll call of Black people killed by officials acting in the name of public safety. And then, horribly, 5 more dead police officers in Dallas working to protect peaceful protesters. And now we must speak out. We must, to paraphrase Justice Sonia Sotomayor, not pretend that these stories are not our stories. I quote her, she said, "These are the canaries in the coal mine whose deaths warn us that no one can breathe in this atmosphere. We cannot exist like this, and we cannot be silent." Loretta Lynch said this morning that we cannot allow the events of this week to become the new normal. And I say that the only way to make that happen is to follow the words of Elie Wiesel. He wrote, "The time must come, it's enough. Enough to go to cemeteries, enough to weep for oceans. It's enough," he said. "There must come a moment of bringing people together. There must be a moment when we choose to be Elie Wiesel, not to be Korach. To speak out against injustice with ringing voices and to hold with care the humanity of those who would oppose our ideas." Elie Wiesel famously said, "The opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. Let us not be indifferent, and let us not be without humanity." So we are left at the end of this week, breathless, spinning, uncertain. Reverend Michael Waters of Joy Tabernacle AME Church in Dallas was asked what he would be preaching on this Sunday. He said, "One thing that I know that I will say is that we need each other, and that together we can make it through this. Love one another, work together in unity and justice. We can and will become the type of nation and society that we should be. I will preach love," he said. "I will preach unity, and I will preach togetherness in our community." So the time comes for us to do more than just wish this away, more than just hope that it will resolve itself in the end. Let us grieve and talk and console, and then let us pick ourselves up and let us use our anger and sadness and fear to get started with the work, to ask the questions, to talk to our elected officials, to demand accountability and change through all the avenues that